Thank you, Madam Mayor. This meeting is being live streamed and or recorded for on-demand viewing via Council's website, and a person's image and or voice may be broadcast. Attendance at the meeting is to be taken as consent by a person to their image and or voice being webcast. All speakers should refrain from making defamatory comments or releasing personal information about another individual without their consent. Council accepts no liability for any damage that may result from the defamatory comments made by persons attending meetings. All liability will rest with the individual who made the comments. The meeting must not be recorded by others without prior written consent of the Council in accordance with the Council's Code of Meeting Practice. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like you to ask you to stand, please, for the prayer and the acknowledgement. Dear Lord, help us in our deliberations today so that our decisions will be for the greater good for the whole of Wentworth Shire. Amen. And I would like to pay my respects and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting, and pay my respects to elders, both past, present and emerging. Thank you very much. Be seated. I call for now any apologies and applications for leave of absence. None. Any disclosures of interest?
Yeah.
Councillor McKinnon?
9.3.
Thank you.
Conflict of interest.
Thank you. Now I'll go for confirmation of the previous minutes, please. Move in a seconder for that.
So moved.
Councillor McKinnon, Councillor Wheeldon.
Can I just speak to Simon, if that's all right?
Yes.
Simon, Councillor Evans is still texting me saying he's trying to get in and no response.
Right, can you just tell him to give me a call? I left my mobile number on the email that I sent out yesterday.
No worries.
Yeah, that 9.3 for me too, thanks.
Okay, 9.3 is another interest. Councillor Hayward. Now, there's been a move in a seconder for the minutes. Those in favour? That's carried. I'd now like to close the meeting for presentations regarding items 9.10, 9.11 and 9.12. Motion to close that, please. Councillor Noonan, Councillor Noonan, Councillor Wheeldon. Those in favour? It's carried. Thanks. Thank you. Now we'd now like, first of all, 9.10, and we're going to have James Goldsworthy. James online.
Right, James, it's over to you.
He's not here.
Sit behind it. Oh, okay.
Can't hear him.
Can't hear James. Yet again, Simon.
Yep.
Well, perhaps we go to someone else. Technology. James, are you there? He can probably hear us, but we can't hear him.
He seems to, Madam Mayor, he seems to have his mic unmuted, so I suspect it's at his end again, because everyone else seems to be not having an issue.
Here we go again.
Okay.
Might ask technology we work on there. We might bring forward Anthony Davis to talk on an item.
Anthony Davis, 9.11. Okay, in that case, we'll go to Anthony if you come in, please.
Madam Mayor.
Come in here. Come into this chair and hear it. Just come right into the thing, sit in the chair. G'day, how are you? Good. You can sit in the chair if you like.
Madam Mayor, I have to go.
Madam Mayor and councillors, thank you for your time. Thank you for seeing us. I'm just going to read straight off the spiel now. Hopefully you guys have a copy of that. See the law, doesn't matter. So, for what I'm reading, we respectfully request council to approve our development application for DA 31049. So, to build a dwelling at Curl. We've got 12.5 acres, and it was planted with citrus. We bought it 4 years ago. We've since removed the citrus to get ready for our new business, agribusiness, and we intend to develop a protected cropping business. That's pretty exciting, actually. Protecting cropping includes greenhouse, hothouses, and controlled environment. Now, the controlled environment is much smaller containers, if you like, or much smaller sheds, and you actually keep the produce warm or cool or whatever. You adjust the colour of the lights, and that creates a different growing speed for the different things. So it's pretty, technology is good that's out there. So we think that's all good. I've got in here, we have some proposals for seeds for exotic plants. That sounds terrible, but exotic plants are simply plants that are not natives. So, anything that's ever been, we're not going to import exotic plants or bits and pieces. But it's a market, it's part of our agribusiness. Okay, so the lot itself, we've got 7 megs of high security water and we've got 35 megs available. We've already got 3-phase power. We've got some infrastructure in place, but we're ready to increase our investment to require, but that's going to require 24-hour security on site, which a dwelling would provide. We believe under the section of 4.2D of Council's LEP, which is attachment 2, Council can allow the dwelling built in a RU1 zone, providing the dwelling house, and this is straight out of the LEP, where they support the permitted agricultural use of the land. Also, to encourage diversity in primary industry enterprises and systems appropriate to the area. So, sorry guys, yeah, that's only that. So, basically we're trying to comply with that, and we're trying to improve the area. If we can get some micro agriculture going out there, you never know who else will jump on board. A bit like the pomegranates out of Kerala, they're just a great little side thing, a niche market. Okay, so we purchased property. When we purchased the property, development approval, which is attachment 1 now, it did not disallow the building of a dwelling. So attachment 1 is on the last page is section 9, which simply says that you can't build a house on lot 2, which is fine because we bought lot 1. So we assume that lot 2 already has a house on it, so we assume, well, that's a fair statement, they're not allowed to build another house there. Didn't mention anything about us not being able to build a house on lot 2, on lot 1, which is what we bought there. In fact, with attachment 3 is just the Elders Act that we bought the place off it, and it simply says that there's a DA development approval. Not, there's no legal in this bit, but we did buy it in good faith. And we worked the past 4 years to try to build a house. So I've researched the controlled environment, and it's shown that a sustainable future in micro agribusiness, such as protected cropping, can add for attachment 4. So that's all right. The lot is less than the minimum lot size, however, the building of a dwelling is consistent with many other developments in Kerala on similar sized lots. Going forward, the Wentworth Council's, what's that word? Acronym. Local Strategic Planning Statement, under Direction B, Attachment 5, specifically talks about the need to support productive and sustainable function of the Kerala Pumped Irrigation District. This is by enabling rural living opportunities such as farming, environmental living, which is Council's own direction forward. So I believe our request is exactly in line with Council's strategic direction. Finally, the Council has already notified adjacent neighbours of this dwelling application, and there have been no objections. So, thank you for your time.
Anybody any questions of Rita?
Any questions?
Sorry if I can.
That's right, Tim.
where did you point out the error in the lots 1 and 2? I just,
Oh, yeah, attachment 1, on the last page of attachment 1, is condition number 9. Have you got, yeah, it's the last page, so it's, yeah, so
The
what,
consent from memory went out stating that,
yeah,
you bought lot 1, didn't you?
we bought lot 1.
Yeah, so the conditions gone out saying you can't have a further dwelling, we can't have a dwelling on lot 2, which didn't advise that lot 1 couldn't have a house on it.
thank you.
Any further questions? No further questions? Thank you, Councillor Wheeldon. You're nearly too late.
Yes. Can you tell me how many little blocks that we cannot, not meant to have houses built on it in Sherwood? I mean, to me, this is one of the key problems we have in the whole Shire. We've got little brick properties that are not viable anymore unless they do something like this proposal to be made use of. And it worries me that there's just too many of these little properties are being used and can't be used under our LEP. We must, if we've got to bend rules, we've got to bend them, because the whole future of our town and our areas depend on getting another use for them.
Yes. Mr. Camillo.
So in response to that, Councillor Wheeldon, I couldn't give you a solid hit number of them that are looking in lot size. What we can tell is that we are very aware of the existing land use pressures in our rural zones. So one of the things that we have done in our strategic planning context is, as it is so rightly pointed out, in that strategic direction, our goal is to support rural property farming and living. And to bring that item into an action, what we've done is we've begun a rural land use review for our rural lands. We're currently having fortnightly meetings with the Department of Planning, Industry and Environment, where we're getting really good buy-in at this point, whereby at this point in time, I would say approximately, without any further interference from other state government agencies, about 18 months away from amending our LEP to relax the constraints and the issues that we're facing in our rural land use for these very purposes.
From my understanding of the LEP, if you're providing and doing sustainable agricultural development, the actual size of the block doesn't particularly count.
Yes, Madam Mayor. That is true, Councillor Wheeldon. However, there are certain, I would say, provisions in which they place prohibitions and limitations on that. And it's not, I mean, I completely support what Mr. Davis is trying to achieve. We are limited by our LEP, and I would like to see an unfavorable outcome for him. It's just that the way the law is that if you are subdividing land under 4.2 rural subdivision provisions, the law states very clearly that you cannot erect a dwelling on such a lot, and a dwelling cannot be existing on such a lot. Now, that's not to say that we wouldn't try our best to try and get an outcome from Mr. Davis. It's just that we need to find a way around that for him.
Actually, this, what do you call this thing now we're doing, which is an extension of the rural land study, I take it?
Yeah, so what we've done is we're actually not doing a study or a strategy, we're doing a rural land use review.
But it's the same principle of what the rural land study was.
It's the same principle, but a lot
Same
of version.
goal. I mean,
Yeah.
we've been here 5 years, this council. I've seen that thing dated 2007. You can't just stop. We've got a right to amend an LEP, and we've got to have a right to make a decision. I just don't accept we've got to wait another 18 months, because that could be another 3 years.
No, so that's actually for the LEP to actually be designated. We are actually preparing a planning proposal right now to amend the LEP.
But can you amend it for things like this?
We can, yes. So what we're doing is there's already existing provisions that other councils have in their LEPs that we want to include in ours, which demonstrates the relaxations that we are looking for to address these kind of issues.
as Councillor Wilkes quite rightly pointed out, this a strategy of this whole rural land study, whatever you call it now, has been Kilwa, areas like Kilwa, Pomona. We need to create these rural lifestyle lots with agriculture, so the water stays with the land. And that's the whole aim this council's had in the 5 years I've been here. But we're not getting there. We just can't stop. We just can't say no, mate, because it's not the book. We've got to push these things harder.
Yeah, I'll go to Councillor McKinnon first. Yeah, Councillor McKinnon.
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. Just looking at the development areas and what I'm going through, we've gone back to 1993, all the way back. The bureaucrats in Sydney are playing merry hell now to put your DAs and all those things through them. Any future mayors coming in need to get their noses right back into these, because I open it up and it's exactly what I started on a campaign with the council in 1993. Don't do anything, nothing can be done, and it's all decided by the bureaucracy. We have to be doing our own LEPs, amended, whatever, to make it happen. Otherwise, developers go away. Thank you.
Councillor, I want to go.
Madam Mayor, we're not creating another precedent. I know there are blocks in Goa that have been allowed to build a house with agricultural interests that are well under or about the same size as this development. And I'm not going to name them, but we know they're there. And we are not doing anything that we haven't done in the past. 8 or 9 years ago, I think, one was let through, and quite rightly let through. And I believe that we must get development, and we must help people do what they want to do on their land.
Thank you, Councillor Wilton. Councillor Hayward, do you have anything?
With Councillor Wilton.
Councillor Noonan?
I think the incoming council needs to send a mayor of education and a few laws in Sydney. We get it sorted, because everything's been said here, the little blocks, everyone uses them, we shouldn't stop them. We shouldn't have a tool to stop them. We need to, it's our plan, let's make it the way we want it, not the bureaucrats in here.
I believe we should approve this application.
I think that'll councillors, that'll come up in the meeting, and I agree with what you say. So thank you very much, Guido, for your presentation, and due consideration will be given at 9.11. Thank you. Now, thank you. Now, James, do we have you online now? Is he driving from Mildura? James? No noise. Okay. Well, perhaps.
I think he's asking when he rings.
Yeah, last time he rang Ken's phone, and we put Ken's phone near the speaker.
Okay, well perhaps we could try that. He's on his way.
No, he's on the phone. Technology. The speaker.
Right, James, I've got you on loudspeaker here, the microphone. Okay, can you just say something for us, James?
James?
So you were here, can you hear us? It's a bit quiet, isn't it?
It's very too quiet.
Yeah. Sorry, we can't hardly hear you, James.
He's in the cone of silence.
Just jump in the car and come across.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's easier.
That'll be easier, James. Thank you.
Thank you. In that case, we'll go to Judith and Karen, who will talk on 9.10. Sorry for this, but this is what I think of technology as well. It really needs to go out the window. So, thank you. Here. Thank you. Thanks very much. You can take your mask off to speak, love. Thank you.
My name is Judith Cullinan, and I reside at 20 Ryder Crescent, where I have resided for the last 22 years.
Judith, sorry, would you just push the button on that mic and we might be able to...
It'll cause feedback.
Oh, okay, no worries. Okay.
I'll let you go back through. Excuse me, we'll see how that goes.
Right, good morning. My name is Judith Cullinan. I reside at 20 Ryder Crescent, and I have done for the last 22 years. To the developer, firstly, I'd like to assure the developers, James Goldworthy Consulting, that we're not objecting to the subdivision going ahead. We are seriously opposed to the plan to join Ryder Crescent to Woolshed Drive, changing our no-through road of approximately 40 years into a thoroughfare. To town planner, councillors, I wish to support my previous written submission that you now have in front of you by adding my concerns on the impact of opening Ryder Crescent after approximately 40 years to traffic noise, safety and the potential devaluation of our properties. I wonder if you do go ahead with this plan, will you then put in footpaths for our safety and in so doing put up our rates while decreasing the value of our investments, and perhaps you should name Woolshed Drive Woolshed Half a Drive. You must be clearly aware that you closed off our crescent after never completing it by allowing the land where the bitumen stopped to be sold to a private investor, allowing the unfinished road to be fenced off. May I indulge myself in a moment of just asking you to visualise a scenario. You live in a home with your own secluded beachfront. Each morning you walk across your front lawn and then your bare feet sink into the warm, clean sand. You walk a little further until you're standing where the soft, clear, gentle waves are brushing up against your toes, and you stare out across the crystal blue water. You take a sip of your coffee from the cup you've carried down to the shoreline. You sigh. This is your castle. This is your serenity. Then a town planner stands at your side. I'm going to take away your tranquility and I'm going to open this up to the public. How do you feel? You feel the same assault as the residents of Ryder Crescent facing their no-through road of approximately 40 years becoming a thoroughfare. Thank you.
Someone might have some questions, Sheila. Does anybody have any questions?
Made that point very clearly.
Thank you. Right. Karen. Karen, please. Thanks, Karen.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Karen Berg, and it's about the subdivision, lot 17, 46 to 50 Armstrong Avenue. And I own a house at 16 Ryder Crescent. My mother owns one at 26 Ryder Crescent. And we like the quiet, tranquil lifestyle there. Most of the people in Ryder Crescent don't want any changes. We don't want a through road to Woolshed Drive. Most of us are older, senior people, and we like the quiet atmosphere of the place. My late husband and I chose the location because of the lack of traffic, only local traffic. We don't have traffic tearing through all hours of the night. My mother, Thora Johnson, chose the same quiet crescent because she doesn't like to have a busy road through there. There are several children who live in the Crescent also, and if we've got a lot of traffic zooming through, it's not safe for them either. Anyway, we just want to endorse what Judy has said and say that we're opposed this development and we would like to keep our Crescent closed, please. Thank you.
Just for the sake of clarity, you oppose the development completely in full.
We oppose opening up the Crescent.
If you're happy with the development.
Oh yeah, we don't mind what happens in Woolshed Drive and Armstrong Avenue. That doesn't concern us.
Right.
It's just we want to keep Ryder Crescent closed at the end.
Right, so it's specifically the impact on your street.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen, and also another interesting area.
Yeah, Mum's here, but she's unable to speak.
Yes, no, I can understand that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, the next one is from Sherry Cullinan, and she's asked that I read her letter, which I'm happy to do. DA 2021-038, Lot 17, Subdivision 46/50, Armstrong Avenue, 13 Ryder Crescent, Wentworth, and the date. To whom it may concern, we are concerned for our quiet, peaceful life in Ryder Crescent. It links with if it links up with Woolshed Drive. As we know, councils like to have units/flats placed on new developments, which attract younger people who tend to live more active lives, coming and going all hours of the day and night. Ryder Crescent has mainly older residents who like the quiet, laid-back serenity. Ryder Crescent has been without a cul-de-sac for over 40 years. So if we haven't complained by now, so be it. We'd like you to make Woolshed Drive the same with a cul-de-sac. We strongly urge you to leave Ryder Crescent how it is. Sincerely, Don and Sherry Cullinan. So councillors will take that into consideration as well, and we thank them for their letter.
Can I just ask, is that an additional submission, or is that?
Well, this is, I don't know, this is a letter I was handed to read, I'm sorry.
Okay, I can't find it.
Yes, so.
Thank you.
I used an additional letter because you couldn't attend.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks very much. We're now actually and we thank those people for attending. We thank them for their submissions, and they'll certainly be spoken to in item 9.10. We're now at an impasse, probably. We're waiting for James to get here from Mildura.
That role, the understanding will be resumed until the alternative tenants.
All right, so
Which we can
thank you.
again.
So we'll go back in. Council, who's going to like to second that? Councillor McAllister. We'll go back into standing orders. Here.
Page 37.
Yeah. Now, item number 7, mayoral and council reports.
Sorry, item 6, page 37.
Great, don't worry about that. Yep. Outstanding matters from previous meetings on page 37, 6.1, and there are a list. There's an officer recommendation. Somebody would like to move it, please. Councillor Noonan, Councillor McAllister. Questions?
Yes, Madam Mayor, if I could raise a question in relation to number 10.2 on page 38, speed bumps in the Street. I think I previously advised council that there's an issue when speed bumps, when the material was purchased at the John Street, that it was advised was restricted dimensions in terms of length. The speed bump that's in Lily Street is in modules that wide. Do you get a speed bump that wide? Or is it bloody wide? It's that wide to bolt together. So I can't see why we can't have a truncated speed bump as requested by residents. It's a John Street because someone's going to get killed. And it won't be long for it out to go to drive through.
Thank you. Is there a comment?
I think it's under review, that's what it says.
So under review.
If I don't get on notes, Councillor Lim, I've said I was away to the previous meeting, and I'll follow up with the traffic committee and the traffic safety officer with regards to that question.
Thank you, Mr. Gunn.
Thank you. Are there any further outstanding items? Okay, what's been moved and seconded? Those in favour? It's carried. Can't see Don now. He's only gone small. Okay, item 771 is the mayoral report. There are two others to go on that. On the 6th of July, the Wentworth Community Group, I was at that, and also the Men in the Shed. I'd like somebody to move it, and then I'm going to speak to it. Thank you, Councillor Elstone. Councillor Wheeldon. I just thought this is the final time, and I think it's necessary to say a few things that in regard to this council. Due to legislation, those who intend to stand at the September 4 elections will very shortly be limited to what may be said and done to eliminate the perception of advantage. I find it's now time to comment on outcomes achieved since my election to Mayor by this council and you who serve our community. COVID has played havoc with many of our residents and businesses, with council having delays in obtaining goods and also in some cases tradespeople. Despite this, we have achieved much. An upgrade of the airport, well under project cost, a hugely successful MDA conference, and thank you to all the staff involved, the Wentworth makers and the MDA. A new pavilion at the showgrounds, new and upgraded halls across the Shire, upgraded public toilets across the Shire, riverfronts work, roadside plantings and more gardens, upgraded sewage facilities and extensions to sewage and water mains. We've spent over $1 million at the Wentworth Caravan Park, which will close in February to allow completion, some $2.5 million yet to be spent. We have some 20 other projects that will be finished in the life of this council. We do still have numerous projects not started. However, most have grant or budgeted funding procured to enable these to proceed. While it's nice to elaborate and speak on positive outcomes, I also have to acknowledge we do have some projects not completed. However, we are working proactively to have these problems overcome, the ones we have. I do thank each and every councillor for your input into decisions made on behalf of our residents, ratepayers and visitors. COVID has at times made meetings difficult with electronic reception, as we found out this morning, not always being as it should be. We've had little attendance in person at conferences due to COVID. I particularly thank Councillor Elstone, Tim Elstone, for his support since my election, and I also acknowledge the service of Councillor McKinnon and Noonan, who I believe may retire. And I'll go a little bit away from this because I know that Don is still attending in hospital, and I do know the many years what it's done, the business he started with and what he finished with. I've had an association for possibly 20 years with both of these councillors, with me being deputy to Don for 2 terms. The huge commitment of Don and Peter to our Shire cannot be understated. To the uninitiated, over the past years, thousands of hours away from families and workplaces have been given to our community. Thank you, thank you. If there are any others not recontesting, I sincerely thank you for your contribution. Thank you also to all and any of our community and sporting groups for your ongoing support. Finally, to our staff. The Wentworth Shire Council is only ever going to be as good as the staff we have. I thank each and every one of you for your commitment to our Shire and its residents. I know seldom are congratulations forthcoming. However, we, and I myself included, do notice and comment on numerous issues perceived and seen across this huge Shire. Thank you. To the front office ladies, I do enjoy the professionalism of you all and the candid manner and jovial exchanges I've encountered with you. To Ken, our General Manager, thank you for your support. We're heading in the right direction. We will still encounter difficulties. However, these are being eliminated. Very well done. To Gail and Chloe, the amount of service outside working hours given to me in particular, the General Manager and all councillors is immense. So to you ladies, thank you. A very huge, sincere thank you. We know how a hen looks after her chickens. From a very old chicken, thank you to two very young hens. Thank you. So, it's been moved and seconded. Would somebody, those in favour? Thank you. Finally, going on from that, I would also like to acknowledge the fact that Sam's here today. Thank you, Sam, for helping out Gail, and I hope Chloe's back very shortly. So we'll go to item 8, reports from committees. There are nil. 9.1, General Manager's report. Mover, Councillor McAllister, seconder, Councillor Elstone. Report. Any questions? Comments? No questions, no comments. Those in favour? It's carried. 9.2, Wentworth-based men in a shed. I'm not too sure that this shouldn't be in confidential. Okay, all right. Mover, so can be spoken to. Councillor Noonan.
We both A and B.
Councillor Wheeldon, move both A and B. Are there any comments, any questions? No.
This is just an initial approach to the council.
Yes.
That we can have an area, possibly the future of a 1% can be processed.
Yes.
We've got to have an area. We don't, council will, if it ever cut through seeds, council will own the building and any assets there. But we just, it's been put to me as a councillor that they need an area that they can work on in future to do this project. And they do not want to affect any men in the shed operation in Dearden, and I don't believe they do because of the personnel involved.
Yeah. Councillor Wheeldon, I think that will come out in future debate, because the B is resolving to progress this item by nominating the way forward. So that's what we're voting on, and I think
we're looking for an option. Out of the options, we've got an option to support or an option to not support. So we're looking for one of those options to be progressed.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I can just listen to Councillor Wheeldon. Certainly not against it, but I just wondered the proximity to Dearden. I mean, it's only 10 minutes out there. Why would
it put to me that the people at Dearden and the men in the shed are more horticulturalists, blockies, whereas a lot of the people in Wentworth getting to this age come from outside the area, Broken Hill and other places, and move from the area into our area, and they have very little affinity with blockies and extras.
And also, Councillor Wheeler, that the membership tend to be having their own communities. I think probably not people in Wentworth have their own membership. But you've got quite a big one in Walker in Europe. That's their community.
Anyway,
I think it's a good idea. We should just council.
I'm not against it, but that's the right answer.
Councillor's been moved and seconded.
Just as a point of order, Madam Mayor, we haven't distinguished whether we're providing in-principle support or not providing in-principle support. As per the options to
recommend. The recommendation is to receive a note and resolve to progress by nominating the way forward. So that will come down to the.
So there are two options listed, and there's a choice of two options, and the mover needs to nominate which of those.
Option A. There we go. Option A is the
providing principal support from men-based shed and subsequently identify suitable land to be investigated. Okay. That's been moved and seconded. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. 9.3. Thank you. So 2 councillors are there are out, so
I'll be out.
yes, thank you. Landfill equipment loan. There is a recommendation there. Okay, Councillor Elstone, prepared to move it?
Yeah, no, I'll move it with a question.
Okay, seconder, please. He's
Recommendation.
recommendation.
To decide which bank.
Oh, well, I'll add a question. What order should I do that in?
We can't debate it unless someone moves and seconded.
Well, probably, yes, it also has a good I can move with recommendation and you take option A.
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so it's
So
moved.
one of mine called or not?
Pardon? Been moved and seconded. So now,
Well, I don't agree with your option, so,
okay.
but didn't I move?
You didn't move
Okay.
anything specific.
Yeah. Well, you can move an amendment.
I'll move that we take option B, I'm assuming, which is then you go back to mine.
Anyone prepared to second that?
Yes.
Councillor Wheeldon?
And if I can, I'd
Okay.
like to speak to it, Madam Mayor.
All right, if you may.
Just on the sum, $2,600 a year difference in the amount of interest you're going to pay. That community bank's given 1.2 million to the community in the last 5 years. It's here for the community. The community set it up. Council should support it.
Councillor Wheeldon, as the seconder, would you like to speak to?
Well, Madam Mayor, we've got something that is working for the community, and the difference in interest is so little for the interest that we get from this community asset that it just doesn't compare when you put the apples to apples.
I guess the other point I'd make, Madam Mayor, too, would be how much of that 1.2 million the bank's given back to the community over 5 years would Greaves have to have come to council on? That we probably couldn't do.
Any comment from Stowe? Any comment from anyone else? No? I'll put the amendment. Those in favour?
What's in the second? We get option B.
Okay, yeah. Okay, the amendment's been carried. Those against the
So,
amendment?
Madam Mayor, sorry to interrupt. Councillor Evans has now managed to join the meeting.
Thank you, Greg. We can't see Don.
Yeah, no, Don's gone out because he's got the
that's
conflict.
okay. Councillor Evans, did you get the gist of what we've just done?
If you could read the amendment for me,
Yeah.
that would be good. I've just come in, so.
The amendment is that it's option B. It's actually option. It's actually the same with option B. Instead of the NAB, it goes with Bendigo Bank.
Is it in the meeting?
Yes,
You happy with that?
yes, I'll support that.
You'd say you vote that way. Okay then.
You can't vote, it's already been carried.
Pardon?
You can't vote, it's carried.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, those in favour?
I don't support it yet.
Yeah. Okay. Those in.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. The amendment has been now becomes the motion.
That's right. Yeah, the amendment becomes to be right.
Councillor Evans can vote.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Yep. So those in favour, we'll go again. Greg, if you're in favour, put your hand up, mate. Yep, okay. So that is the motion. Those against the amendment. 1, you want your vote recorded? Okay, Councillor McAllister against. Now that becomes the motion. Those in favour of the motion.
Sorry, you've done that.
It's carried. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. 9.4, the monthly finance report. Mover and a seconder. Councillor McAllister, seconder, please. Councillor Noonan.
Councillor Evans.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, a bit slow that time, Councillor Evans.
Sorry. Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, Councillor, I can't see. Is Don still sitting there or is he gone? I'm sorry. I think.
Is someone letting Councillor McKinnon know to come back?
Yeah, he's coming back.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. 9.4, the monthly finance report. He moved and seconded, didn't we?
Yes, we did, myself and Councillor Noonan.
Okay.
Madam Mayor.
A question?
Just in relation to, on page 64, the T Corp loans, have we looked any further into or received any advice from T Corp about the possibility of further refinancing other loans that have, what now looks exceedingly like excessive interest rates by comparison?
I haven't heard anything, Councillor McAllister. I know the conversations that I've had with T Corp in recent times have reaffirmed to me that they're still keen to loan to councils like us and Broken Hill and a number of other councils that were able to loan from them. Their discussions with staff at the OLG have been positive, but as a lot of things, it's waiting for approval by the Minister.
Councillor Weldon.
Have we put any specific amount or what we want to borrow money from T Corp to them?
I've had conversations with them about the types of stuff that I would like to borrow from them, but they're in a bit of a, I suppose we're both in a bit of a catch-22 position in that until we can get that feedback or get that approval from the Minister, there's not much more we can do. I've indicated that we've got lots of programs and lots of infrastructure works that we could be funding.
Councillor Weldon.
How could T Corp knock it back when we haven't put anything specific to them?
It's not that T Corp's knocking us back, Councillor Weldon. The reason why that we were able to loan from them previously was because the government gave us an amnesty through the first period of COVID to allow us to borrow from T Corp. That period has now expired, and T Corp are just waiting for advice from the Minister as to whether they will now allow those councils who weren't previously able to borrow from them that have then subsequently demonstrated that they meet T Corp's credit criteria to have permission to continue to borrow from them. That's the only hold-up. T Corp are more than willing to lend us money.
Councillor McAllister.
Mr. Rule, can we just be clear about who the Minister is, please?
The Minister for Local Government.
And have we sent a direct request or a follow-up to the Minister?
Ken wrote a letter 6 or 8 weeks ago, Ken, from memory, when we raised it last time.
A few months ago, one of you asked.
In my memory, this question has been raised at the last 3 council meetings that I can remember. And I'm just wondering, considering that this stalemate has been ongoing for such a long period of time, would it not be appropriate for this council to perhaps seek from the Minister for Regional New South Wales, the Deputy Premier, some input about this, because it's really holding up any opportunities. We've heard from the cross-border commissioners, we've heard from Murray Regional Tourism that these cross-border areas are being severely disadvantaged throughout this whole thing, and yet no minister is stepping up to provide the assistance that we so desperately have been asking for. And this council's kept on this for ages. I would hope that we're following up every avenue with every possible minister and shouting from the rooftops, because paying 5% when we should be, when we could be paying less than 2 is a significant difference when we're looking at the sort of money that we're looking at here in this report.
Councillor McKinnon, Councillor Evans, do you have any questions?
No.
I've got a couple. I'm looking at the cash balance at the 30th of June, Mr. Rule. Is 1.7 million considered to be sufficient? Because I know we usually aim for a bit higher than that.
What page are you on, Madam Mayor?
I'm on page 62. Cash balance 1.733,382.52 cents.
Yep. That varies from month to month, but I usually try to sort of keep it between sort of 1.5 and 2.5 mil. It just depends on timing of when we do a payment run compared to when the end of the month is.
Okay, and then other questions on page 65, where we come to the grand total, and it is a grand total of overtime, 84,000. We're getting back to where we were, and it seems to be mainly in 2 areas, and it's quite a lot of, it's mainly roads and engineering inside. So is there any particular reason this is so high?
Jeff, do you want to talk to that one?
Yeah, I might be able to answer that one. So, large majority of that is with regards to works for the council doing for Transport for New South Wales on the highway project.
Be recovered.
Yeah, the 3 kilometre section. So there's been a number of, obviously the distance for travel for the project, and that is those that are on costs incorporated into our costs associated with the project covered by Transport for New South Wales.
Is that where the roads are being built very, very high and quite dangerous for trucks?
It's essentially at the end of the Mallee Cow. So it's a 3 kilometre section straight towards Taplin Rail Road.
I've had some complaints, but okay. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Those in favour? That's carried. 9.5, monthly investment report on page 66. Mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor McKinnon. Councillor Noonan. Oh, you're just too slow, Councillor Evans. I'm watching you. So, any questions on the monthly?
Just one if I can.
Yes.
Simon, the unexpended grants, the growing club grant, and the extended daycare, they're just parts, are they? There's still more of that to come.
Absolutely. There. I'm not 100% sure the funding agreement with that, but if it's similar to what we did last time, we got a 30% payment up front when we signed the funding agreement.
Okay.
So I suspect that's what those 2 figures represent that.
Any further questions, councillors?
Well, Madam Mayor, just in relation to my previous rant, we didn't really get anywhere. Do I need to put forward a motion that that this council writes to the Deputy Premier seeking his assistance in getting a response from the Minister for Local Government in relation to TCorp loan refinancing? Because I'm happy to put forward such a motion if someone will second it.
Yeah, but wait to hear the motion, Councillor Wheeldon.
The motion is that council write to the Minister for Regional New South Wales, the Deputy Premier, seeking his intervention in eliciting a response from the Minister for Local Government in relation to our continued requests for refinancing of loans through TCorp.
Happy with that, Councillor Wheeldon?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I've got about half of it.
Seek his intervention in eliciting a response from the Minister for Local Government. Eliciting with an E, sorry, just so it's not illicit. Eliciting a response from the Minister for Local Government. in relation to repeated requests from council. Seeking refinancing of loans through TCorp. I think that was it. Perhaps just check the recording. That's certainly the intent of the motion. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments on that? No, it's been moved, it's been seconded. Those in favour? It's carried. Now we'll have somebody take us back out of council. Oh, wait. Oh, Evan Council. I thought we did.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so those will move.
Oh, yes, I did jump in. Sorry, madam.
Move the recommendation. Yeah, okay, they're all in favour. Thank you. Now we'll go back in to close the council and go back. So we
have to vote on that.
we
vote on 9.5 or not?
That's what we just. Yes.
We did.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Go back as into close the. Thank you. Thank you. Seconder.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor McAllister. So we'll suspend outstanding orders and invite Mr Goldsworthy in on 9.10. Sorry, James.
Leaving the desk in front of you, please.
Sorry, James.
That's okay. I didn't get any speeding fines. So. Yeah, I did pass 2 police cars. So.
And you chose the right bridge.
Did.
For clarity, Mr Goldsworthy is talking on 2 items of discussion in relation to particular applications.
Can you tell us which one? Yep. Thank you.
Yes. Thanks, Madam Mayor. Now, I believe 910 is Armstrong Avenue, which is the 17-lot subdivision. Okay, so we've lodged the application, which councillors will have seen, for the subdivision of the land into 17 lots, residential lots. So the land has frontage to Armstrong Avenue and also fronts onto Tuckers Creek. So it's got an area of roughly 3.4 hectares and is generally regular in shape. The Tucker Creek frontage of the land was previously Crown land and has been recently freeholded, so that's, I suppose, provided the frontage to the creek, but then also increased the overall holding of the land. And then also the land is clearly inside the town flood levy, so obviously zoned for residential development as we have proposed through the application, and protected in terms of flooding. So in terms of preparing for the preparation of the application, we undertook pre-application meetings with council, really just to understand the servicing requirements in terms of sewer, water, drainage, particularly the gravity services, but then also the road and Ryder Crescent. So we discussed those sorts of matters in relation to the subdivision, but also lot size and density. And it was confirmed at that stage also that there's no outline development plan proposing how the land should actually be developed in a higher order, I suppose, by something that might normally be prepared by council. And I suppose that was really needing to be confirmed in particular in conjunction with the servicing of the land because of the Ryder Crescent connection and what council's thoughts were in relation to that. So I suppose the application has responded to the feedback that we got at that meeting, but then also the extent or the fact that Ryder Crescent ceases at our land. So as a result of that, objections were received by council from the landowners, and really, I suppose, whilst they there are sort of several issues raised. It really, as we understand, boiled down to that of the extension of Ryder Crescent. And I suppose we felt that we've responded to the sort of practicalities of the matter, the fact that there's a dead-end street there now, there's no opportunity for sort of service vehicles to turn independent of our land, I suppose, the land that's subject to the application, so they could nose out onto that. But we chose to extend it through in order to provide that connectivity, I suppose, rather than a dead-end road. And I suppose where we've come to is that there's the application before council. That seems to be the main issue. We are sort of, I suppose, reliant upon the application as we've submitted to council. However, we also do acknowledge the fact that there's opportunity to sort of rejig things slightly to accommodate the concerns of the objectors. One, if that were to be the case, I've got a couple of options, I suppose, how that might be achieved, because we are particularly concerned that there may be a delay as a result of council elections and caretaker period. But I suppose we've got the issue of we can easily accommodate a court bowl within our land, and certainly the landowner, whilst it's not their first option, they're able to do that and willing to do that if council feels that is okay. However, there is the dead-end road of Ryder Crescent, which doesn't have a court bowl and doesn't provide for sort of the turning or manoeuvring of rubbish trucks or removalist trucks or those sorts of larger vehicles. So I'm not sure how that would be accommodated, and it's sort of, I suppose, we could easily say, well, that's not our problem because it's on what is council land, being a road reserve, I suppose. It's probably something that needs to be fleshed out a little bit more if that was something that was significant to council. And I suppose what our thoughts are is that we would like the officer's recommendation to be confirmed by councillors. However, if you're inclined not to do that, that there be a deferred commencement condition included within the consent that would provide for accommodating, I suppose, a court bowl arrangement or something along those lines that effectively, what I'm thinking, provides for services and pedestrian thoroughfares, but doesn't provide for vehicular thoroughfare through between each of the subdivisions or the estates, I suppose. So they're the two options that I see available. We go for option one, which is the officer's recommendation, but there is their option two available. So, and that really just would probably save us, I suppose, 6 months.
James, can I just ask, have there been any buy-in from emergency services in relation to the issue around the court bowl? If option two were to be activated, how it might impact, for example, fire trucks if they were needed in the vicinity? Because, as you know, safety is an issue that council needs to take seriously.
Sure. That's not something that we have been involved in, but definitely a relevant sort of issue. So I wouldn't be able to comment sort of because I'm not aware. Council may have had some consultation through the process, but we certainly haven't had any at all at this stage.
George raised a point here about those vehicles having access manoeuvrability in Ryder Crescent. There's a bloody big gap between 17 Ryder Crescent and the fence. That's where the truck goes in, I'd say.
Which is ground land.
Yeah.
And perhaps to add to it is that that's been the situation for 40 years. No service vehicle went in there and kept going across Ashes Land. No, that doesn't change.
There's a fair gap there.
It's always been like that. They stick their nose up there, drop back off, and off they go.
Also, I wonder why it needs 2 roads connected to allow water and services. They're going to be buried bloody ground. They won't know if the roads are connected. And there's water can be accessed off Armstrong Avenue. Sewage can go to pump number 6.
Pump number 6, which is right at the back end plan there of the attachment, page 81. So that pump station's on the corner of that grand lot in that easement off of the, maybe like 6 or 11.
Yeah, if I may add in relation to that, my understanding is that there is a connection required in some form. Doesn't necessarily need to be a road, but the services do need to get through there in order for our land to be serviced by existing gravity services that are at the end of Ryder Crescent. So, so there would need to be either an easement through private land, a road, or some other sort of form of access in order for that to be provided.
How wide would the easement have to be? Normal 3 metres.
If you put sewer and water and what else, yeah.
So given where that point is going and the frontage, which they frequently said most of the 24 metres on that right crease with the crown off the side of your proposal, like 500 of couple of them probably going to give you.
Well, our understanding.
As opposed to creating easement.
Yeah, look. Yeah, I mean, as to how it would actually come out, would probably, it would be reliant upon council's engineers to a degree. But I would say that it would be a good planning outcome for there to be pedestrian connectivity between each of the land parcels. So that would be enough. If you were to have that, that would be enough for the services to be accommodated as well.
The walkway between lots 5 and 6, which the services could come into and join into that pump station. Does that make sense, Jeff?
Yeah, it could be. There's quite a few different options there outside the categories that we can look at. That's obviously one of them, yeah, sure. But probably in this early stage here and without input into this market, regards to how to do the service. Yeah, there's obviously a number of different options there and they'll all work as far as an engineering.
Yeah.
Any further questions to James on Councillor Wilton?
Yes, James. We're in a very awkward position where we won't be able to make any decision and we don't want to hold the development up. How quickly can you get a cul-de-sac proposal through to us that we can approve? I think it's terribly unfair that we hold a development back for 3 or 4 months.
Yep.
So do we have to hold it up?
I don't think we do have to hold it up.
Can't we have an amendment in the motion that it'll be a cul-de-sac?
If I may, our option 2 that I've indicated would be a deferred commencement condition requiring adjustments to the plan that we've submitted to accommodate this particular issue. So, effectively, you'd really be saying that we submit a plan saying that there shouldn't be vehicular connection between the two, and that a suitable plan is submitted to accommodate that.
If the road doesn't go ahead, you're going to end up with another lot there.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Just depends upon what the requirements may be. That's right. So that's not a bad outcome.
Sorry, subject to that. As everybody wants subdivision within the motion, should we be heading to 18 or if it comes out like that?
No, doesn't matter. You're approving the development upon the land with a deferred commencement, just to state that you don't want vehicular connectivity, but you want pedestrian connectivity.
That don't matter 25 lots.
Yep.
Any further questions, Councillor McKenna or Councillor Evans? No?
I think I follow the intent there to, if we can get that get that deferred arrangement happening. I think our priority is to probably create that cul-de-sac arrangement and no vehicle access through that Ryder Crescent. Perhaps there needs to be a bit of consideration on how service vehicles can turn there, but that will be according to engineers' reports, I guess. That's about it from me.
Looking at us with that water in the background. No further questions of 910. Page 116, 2021-064, Elmer Road, Trebiella.
Okay, thank you.
Have we voted on
No, this is only presentation.
All right.
Yes.
Sure. So this application, as councillors will see within their papers, is a realignment of existing boundaries between two allotments. So we've got two allotments, one of around 6 hectares and a second of around 8 hectares. And we're looking to basically consolidate the horticultural holding. So as we've got a holding of around 14 hectares in one lot, and then the existing house having an area of about 0.3 hectares. So the purpose of the subdivision is that the new owners of the land aren't really interested in having the dwelling. However, and as a result, the dwelling has actually been sold. There's been a contract signed and entered into, and a deposit paid for on the basis of the subdivision plan being prepared and lodged. So the people who are living in the house and have signed the contract have sold their house also in debt, and so there's quite a predicament that has resulted in the fact that there was an understanding that this type of subdivision would be undertaken. So effectively, the subdivision really is to increase the agricultural holding. So the land is productive agricultural land that's planted to wine grapes and in production. The landowners who have this horticultural holding have other holdings within the immediate area, and we've been working with council to connect the irrigation mains between the properties to produce a more efficient arrangement. The application, as we are proposing here now, is quite similar to others, and in fact we're finalising 4 subdivisions at the moment quite close to this land, where titles are in the process of being issued or very close to being issued, and they were undertaken in exactly the same manner, in that we were doing a realignment of boundaries. So we're not increasing the number of lots, we're merely realigning the existing boundaries of those lots. So we say that there's benefits to agriculture as a result of the subdivision being undertaken. There's no loss of agricultural land and no loss of plantings that are undertaken or existing on the land, and that the subdivision is consistent with the objectives of the primary production zone which the land is located within, in that there's no loss of horticultural land. There's an increase in horticultural land in some respects, in that we've got a consolidated and large land holding, and that the existing dwelling is there on the land, and merely that the boundaries are being realigned to go around that land. We also understand that there's no objections in any way, whether it be by adjoining landowners as a result, or in terms of any authorities. So there's nothing actually preventing any consent from being issued in relation to this one. And we also, I suppose, if council are inclined to do so, it's not sort of referred to in the report, but we're not interested in putting any sort of further dwelling on the land, so we would be happy for there to be some restriction registered on the title that would say that there's no further subdivision, but particularly no dwelling on the balance of the land, because we're just not interested in that, I suppose. So that's our sort of statement in relation to this application.
Any questions, Councillor McAllister?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So when you say there's no hang on, I'm looking at the wrong one. Sorry, no, withdrawn.
Any other questions? Any questions to Mr. Godolphin?
Oh, yeah, with the development application, I'd still like to see that the who is part of that development application, having been through these over the years, if it's not noted on the development application, it could just disappear and we could end up with a road right through.
I think the last one. That's sorry, Don, that's the third one. We're looking at 912, right, on page 116. This is the one that's in PBL. Any other comments, questions? No? Well, thank you, James. Thanks for coming out. I'm sorry about the...
We'll work that out before next time.
Yeah,
No worries.
yeah, we'll probably be tossed out the window.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity.
Right, great. Thank you for coming. I now ask that we be taken back into council, please. Council Newton.
Oh, sorry, Madam Mayor, I've moved that the standing order be resumed.
Thank you.
Councillor Lee, also this way.
Councillor Wilson, thank you. As a favour. Harry, thank you. We haven't come back on yet, so as I say, we're taking number 6 here. We're back on air. 9.6. Mention of alcohol-free zone, Wentworth District Growing Club on page 73. Councillor Wilson, Councillor Haywood. Any questions, comments?
First question.
Yes.
I guess they can determine if they sell alcohol at the Rowan Club. Do they get that through the police or the court or something? And do they have to produce the RSAs for the very first?
Okay.
Madam Mayor, can we just make it subject to the event going ahead?
Yes, subject to the event going ahead. Moving second, are happy with that? Yes. Those in favour? It's carried. 9.7, Our Town, Our Future, Dare to Revitalise Strategy 2021.
With recommendation, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Newman, seconder.
Yeah.
Councillor Wills, I'd only just like to congratulate the team that worked on this presentation. We're getting better each time we do one of these, and it's very, very good. Comments and questions, please. Yes, Councillor McKinnon?
Just one, it's just a small anomaly, but we do have a subdivision at the end of School Road where it comes up onto opposite the Humiella Packers. Behind the house at front of the highway there is a gated Indigenous facility there with about 7 or 8 units there.
Is it not? No.
Sorry, I think for catch first comment of the councillors. Sorry.
Sorry, Councillor McKinnon. Where's that one?
If you come back to School Road all the way around, follow the road, and when you nearly get to the Silver City Highway, there's a house on the corner. Just at the back of it, there's a gated village there. Not a village, subdivision.
Yeah, I know where you are.
And
It's been there for 16 years.
It hasn't been put in the
in this strategy.
plan, apparently.
Oh, okay. I'll look into that.
It's just a notation of the infrastructure associated with the gated community and additional Indigenous.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Okay, that's been noted, Councillor McKinnon. Any further? Anybody, any other questions?
Two concerns about changing the parking arrangements.
Yes, Councillor Elstone. So, further to the community consultations carried out in relation to the proposed, I guess, parallel parking rather than the 45-degree angle parking.
We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, Madam Mayor. In relation to the community consultation that was carried out, there was proposed parallel parking as opposed to the 45-degree angle parking. Due to the concerns, we've decided to retain the 45-degree angle parking and scrap the parallel parking, which is being included in this plan.
Any other questions, comments? No? They moved and seconded, those in favour? Carried. 9.8, delegated authority approval as at the end of June 2021, page 85.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Councillor McAllister, seconder. Councillor Haywood. Questions? Comments? No questions, no comments. Those in favour? Yeah, carried.
Division.
Division, those in favour? Everybody, carried, thank you. 9.9, developed application, DA 2021-011.
I'll move the recommendation, Madam Mayor.
And move Councillor Elstone, second please. Councillor McAllister. Comments please. No comments? Okay, those in favour of the recommendation?
I did have a comment. Sorry. I'm just noting that in relation to, sorry, there's so much to take in here. The riverfront setback standard, if I'm right, through you, Madam Mayor, maybe Mr. Carlin can answer, has to do with the Murray River. Do we have nothing similar for the Darling, and should we?
We do. So the Murray River has a 40-metre setback, the Darling and everything else has a 30-metre setback, and that's set down by biodiversity laws.
Thank you.
Okay. No further questions. Being moved, seconded, those in favour? Thank you.
Division.
Division again, those in favour? Thank you. 9.10.
I'll move the recommendation that on the basis of the plan is amended.
Yeah, second councillor Haywood.
Amended to, that it's a cul-de-sac finish, there needs to be no connection to private present. And then it's done via a deferred development approval, consultation with the entity.
Question. Councillor Elstone, wouldn't it be wise to allow a proposed connection?
Well, part of the discussion we had.
Yeah, well, rather than coming back to council.
Yeah, including that.
No vehicular connectivity, but provision for services of pedestrian access, yes?
Yes, that's where it's all look for.
Approved subject to conditions, the one being the first commencement condition reliant upon, upon the redesign of the vehicular movement traffic around both right of Crescent and Bullshed Road.
Anybody else anything? Okay. Access, I suppose. Because you're happy with that addition?
Yeah, closing should be right.
Thank you. Those in favour?
There's two widths there. Just need to remove a width.
Division, those in favour? It's carried, thank you. 9.11, Governor Road Silver, Area Development Standards, page 14. Recommendation there. Councillor, everyone of the ones on the screen. I'll get both of you people on the screen if you put your hand up.
I'll move the recommendation, Madam Mayor.
Councillor are there any comments or questions regarding?
If we approve, All right, I'll move our head and make a second to start with.
I thought you put your hand up, so I put you down a second. Okay, sorry.
We're moving two different things, Madam Mayor, so I've moved the recommendation.
Is there anybody prepared to second Councillor McAllister with the recommendation? There being no one prepared to second it, that lapses. We'll go now for.
We need a motion. I move the approve the development.
With any condition?
And be allowed to build a house on it.
Second that?
I'll move an amendment. I'll like to move an amendment.
Okay, so it's.
I think that, first of all, we don't knock it back, but we look at how we can make it happen as a matter of, let's help these people do what they want to do. Legally, we can't.
Well, we need a
Oh, sorry.
We need a second
Sorry.
for your amendment.
I'm liking what he's saying so far.
All right. What I think we should do is not refuse, that we do not refuse this development. But I don't know if you can hold in advance, or defer approval until we gain something from the government that will allow, we can, something LEP, whatever the new council can do it, amend their LEP so we'll never have this situation again. So we get little properties anywhere doing it.
I think that could go in conjunction with the LEP, but in this matter, there's nothing to stop us approving it right here and now. It's consistent with what we've done all over the shire.
I'm not against it, so.
We've got your amendment is contrary to what.
Well, the amendment's been amended, but I'm just speaking against Councillor Noonan's amendment, just on the basis that there's nothing to stop us approving this with council today. It's consistent with what we've got across the shire in a lot of areas. It's consistent with what we've been doing. And again, as we said earlier, that's the message that's got to get through to Sydney. We should just give the big.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, they're
Director Matthew to make comment in relation to that.
Thank you. Just in relation to the comments being made, I would be remiss in my duties as an officer of council if I didn't at least advise council of the correspondence we received by DPIE. That this particular one, and while I completely support Mr. Davis in trying to get a dwelling in this land, the issue that we're facing from a purely legal perspective, if I address it from that point of view, not from a moralistic perspective, but from a legal perspective, we are literally, our hands are tied. Because in this particular circumstance, where we have sought a 4.6 variance to a development standard from the department through the secretary, that is a concurrence that we need to secure before any DA can process. The law is very clear, and it says that if a 4.6 concurrence cannot be secured by the secretary, the law says that development approval cannot proceed. That doesn't mean to say that there aren't avenues that we can do strategically in this council to relax those provisions, and it doesn't mean there aren't avenues that the students can pursue outside of this matter through other reviews of determination and things like that. It's just, I think from a purely legal point of view, there is that particular thing where we need the secretary's concurrence to proceed that to DA, and we haven't got it.
From a legal point.
Correct.
Sorry, Matthew, could I, Mr. Davis, with Twine Horticultural Business Opportunities and whatever else, was all that represented to secure the?
It was. So the history of the issue was 4.6 variation application was made to council. We referred that off to the relevant agency, being DPI. They came back with this letter, and when we got that letter, I was very sorely disappointed and actually quite angry because it stands in contravention to everything that we're trying to achieve as a council to support our rural landholders out here. So I made numerous phone calls to the author of the letter and tried for a matter of weeks to try and get around it. But the long and short of it is that because this particular issue, there's two aspects of it. There's land use provisions, there's ancillary use to support horticultural holdings, and that's all well and good. But the issue that the department are looking at from this point of view is that it's a variance to a development standard whereby it's below the minimum lot size. And they actually do a numerical value standard assessment
to look at whether or not that can go ahead or not. Now, the rule is 90%. So if it's above or below 10%, depends on whether the variance can proceed. In this particular circumstance, because it was more than 10% variance, the department said concurrence can't proceed.
I still would move that we approve the development because there have been 3 examples of us approving similar developments for at least the last 10 years. And I think it's just outright discrimination if we vote against the development. I mean, the precept is there that the example, I can give examples, but I'm not going to, that we have approved similar, even smaller blocks than this.
That's nothing to do with precedent. No, we can't because it's a legal standoff, and it's not up to us. We can't do it. They won't give us concurrence. But we've had this discussion with. Remember, we've had similar discussions with the Minister for Agriculture in Broken Hill about this very issue, and this goes back to the 2011 LEP that we're still left with, that we're unable to change, and all these busted ass conditions that haven't been updated, and it's through no fault of our own, and we keep getting our hands tied, and it's like the state government just refuses to help us, and I feel very bad for these people who have, in good faith, got some really progressive ideas, and it would be great for the community, but legally, as a planning body, we cannot approve this because we don't have that concurrence which we need, and I can't. I would be remiss in my duties as a councillor if I approved something that was illegal. We must do everything we can to change that particular law in the state government about the minimum lot sizes. And it's frustrating, and I absolutely feel for the applicant.
You run me through clause 4.2.
Sure. So clause 4.2 of the LEP provides for the subdivision of rural lands, whereby it is for the sole purpose of primary production. That includes a variety of primary production uses. There are sub-clauses within 4.2 where it says that if it is for the purpose of primary production, that a rural subdivision cannot occur for purposes of a subdivision, that includes boundary realignments, cannot occur where an existing dwelling would be situated on such a lot, or if it was to be subdivided for rural purposes, any future dwellings on the new lot would, or smaller lot would not be able to be erected. So there's a number of criteria which need to be met. That's 4.2 rural subdivisions under the 2011 LEP. Now I take Councillor Williams' point that there has been historical things where land has been subdivided smaller. Those were done under previous LEPs where that was permitted. The 2011 LEP is a bit more restrictive in its approach, and as I've indicated before, we are taking steps to prepare planning proposals to amend the LEPs to relax those restrictions, but it will take some time.
And that time being?
The time being it takes to prepare the plan proposal, bring that before council to get endorsement, then send it through the department, then we have the interagency referral process, and we have the gateway determination, meet the conditions, and then we get it gazetted.
That's our consultation.
Correct.
And this LEP thing is one of the first things that this council addressed 5 years ago, and still haven't had any movement.
I was saying earlier about the rural land study. I've seen it dated in 2007. The reality is, we just can't sit here and say, okay, no worries, people, just wait 2 years, what happens?
If I may, Madam Mayor, I might ask Mr. Davis to read the appropriate clause or Catherine, which he'd like us to pay our attention to.
4.2D is council's LEP, dwelling houses in rural zones, which is where we are. The objective of this clause is to ensure dwelling houses are developed only where they support permitted agricultural use of the land. So I'm asking for permitted agricultural use of the land. Clause 2 says, 4.2D2 says, this clause applies to the development for the purpose of dwelling houses on land in rural zone R1 production. So that's just saying that that's where I am. I acknowledge I'm in a rural zone. Clause 3 says, before granting consent to development to which this clause applies, the consent authority must be satisfied that the land is being or is intended to be used for the purpose of intensive plant agriculture or extensive agriculture. So hopefully you're convinced of that. B, the dwelling house will be required to support the carrying out of any such purpose. We'll obviously need that. 3C says, the dwelling house is not likely to cause any land use conflict with existing agricultural uses being undertaken on the neighbouring properties. We're not going to do that. And 4D, services for the supply of water, electricity, support the agricultural activity are available. Well, we've already replaced. So I'm not sure what might be read out there, but this, in my belief, this allows council to allow dwelling. Thank you. This is attachment number 2 in your package. Thank you for your time again.
Madam Mayor, whether the proponent has received a copy of the letter from DPI. So this council could provide consent. This council could provide consent against the law and against the advice of the department, but there will not be concurrence from that department. So that's what could happen. And I mean, who wins? It still doesn't go any further. Is that correct, Mr. Carlin?
Correct. So look, I think Mr. Gibbs' point is that yes, 4.2D does allow dwellings in land use holdings where it meets the minimum lot size. The issue that we're facing, purely from a legal point of view, like I said, is that the application went to the department seeking to vary a development standard because it is below the minimum lot size, and that's where we haven't secured concurrence. So it's not that we don't want Mr. Gibbs to have a hardship that we're not saying that we shouldn't have one or that we can't have one. If the department's saying we can't have one, and I think that's the message we need to get here is that the department haven't given concurrence here, not us.
This is a matter of the bureaucrats taking control.
Absolutely.
Still since 2011.
Sorry. Go round and round direct. Mr. Ross, what do you feel? Are you looking at this?
I did move the approval, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so you've moved the approval. Is there a second to the approval?
Yeah, I seconded
You
it.
seconded it then? Have you said that then? Well,
I have an amendment up there.
no, sure.
The matter that this be deferred, that there is going to be a moot point, going to take 2 years for it to be resolved. So perhaps the amendment won't serve any great purpose. I don't think. So I think I'm worthy of consideration. We need to deal further. All right.
Pending further.
Pending urgent representations to Madison New South Wales Government in relation to reforms to LEP 2.1.
Yes.
Do it all.
I'll second that.
The matter be deferred pending urgent representation to the New South Wales Government. Okay. In relation to
LEP 2011.
Well, I think just with respect to Councillor Vernon, this is a problem we've been talking about for 5 years. This council, if it goes on before that, there's something to change. How do we get around this? When we just hear from the planning director that yeah, it'll happen, it'll take 2 years. I mean, that's not acceptable to anyone.
Okay, I can agree more. But he's also told us it's illegal to approve it. The word's illegal. Brings loud and clear to me. There's no other way. You can't misinterpret it. We might not believe it, Councillor Little, but when you've got our expert telling us it's illegal, It's bloody illegal.
And we've got,
It's terrible, it is.
we've got two different versions, though. The person has just put it up saying that he believes it's legal, so,
Let's go support. If that's your feeling, councillor, you need to vote in support of the motion to allow the development. Get the code, yeah.
We have an amendment that council, council be deferred pending urgent representation of New South Wales Government. Is that close enough to what we should have, or should we go for a special minister?
I'd go to New South Wales Department of People and DPIE, wherever they are.
Well, I think I agree with Councillor Noonan's sentiment, the New South Wales Government. So if the department head, if the minister, that bloke that we spoke to in Broken Hill, who didn't seem to want to help us at all, won't help us, we go to the Deputy Premier. And if he won't help us, we go to the Premier. We need to keep pushing this as we have been for the last 5 years until somebody responds.
it's not good enough.
All right, so we've got an amendment there. Those in favour of the amendment that is up on the book.
Can I speak against the amendment? Right out loud.
Yes, I suppose you talk against the amendment.
We're planning on these small allotments. It's been a bugbear for 30 or 40 years. And we say amended LEP. One amendment of the LEP took 13 years. People can't wait that long. People want to do things. And I mentioned a minute ago that we have approved similar applications to build houses if they're attached to agricultural pursuits. I think it would be grossly unfair if we didn't approve this application. And to say it's illegal when we've done it before and haven't been wrapped over the knuckles for it, I just cannot see any reason not to approve this application.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. I think whatever Councillor Wheeldon is referring to in terms of what's been done in the past, Council will always look at each case on its merits and what's before it and the legalities of doing so. And I will hazard a guess that we have not done anything illegal in the past, nor should we in the future.
Yeah, we've got an amendment there. Unfortunately, I think once we've told it's illegal, I'm inclined to agree because I have problems with going with something that says we may put council into disrepute and come back and fight us or fight our ratepayers backside. So I'll put the amendment. Those in favour of the amendment? What do you two do? No? 1, 2. Councillor Evans got his hand up.
Yes. What are you doing?
We're looking at the amendment, Councillor McKinnon, which says that Council defer the matter pending urgent representation to the New South Wales Government in relation to Wentworth LEP 2011.
Well, that's exactly what I said earlier. If you don't take it from Sydney, the new mayor, none of this will just get this bureaucratic answer all the time that it's illegal. Well, it's our job to not worry about it being legal. It's our job to represent our community, and that sounds like it's a start. Okay.
Okay. Your hands up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The amendment's carried. The amendment now becomes the motion.
We're not voting on it yet.
Those in favour of the motion? That's 1, 2, 3. That's carried. Those who vote against it, Councillor Wheeldon, Councillor Hayward, Councillor Elstone. Sorry to come this way, however.
Need to call the division. Need to call the division on that one.
The division, those in favour? Same councillors in the division, those same councillors against. Thank you.
My vote recorded against.
Yeah, please.
Done automatically on a division.
Yeah, that's done with division. Now, 912, on page 116. subdivision Alba Road, Tremiella. Mover, please, and seconder.
Move the recommendation.
Councillor Noonan, recommendation, seconder. Councillor Haywood. Any comment?
A question, Mr. Carlton, if I could.
116.
Could I ask Mr. Carlton? Again, this is a matter of legality, Mr. Carlton.
It is, it's in our LEP, but this one isn't as scrutinised at this point as the previous one. Our LEP is clear in that we have a duty. The issue that we've got, councillors, is that with the recent changes to the planning laws that came into play in 1 July 2018, and the recent 16 or so amendments that have been in place since the last 2 years, including the inception of the e-planning portal, the Minister and their departments, whether it's OEH, EES, Ag, Department of Planning, whoever they are, they've put in a compulsory requirement whereby council are reporting to the various departments through the e-planning portal on a regular basis. With regards to 4.6 variations, it's every 3 months. With regards to other matters regarding subdivisions, it's every 6 months. With regards to DA, it's every year. So these things are being looked at very closely by the department and their inter-department agencies. So with regards to this, it's entirely up to council what we do, because as you've rightly pointed out, it is our LEP, and we should be able to make decisions with some level of flexibility. However, that being said, Councillor Noonan is correct. It is a matter of legality of what's in our LEP and whether we choose to go by that. And I know Mr. Goldsworthy in this one has made some representations earlier today on this. However, it is a matter of again the minimum lot size and the 4.2 rule subdivision provisions of prohibitions and things that are in there.
Mr. Goldsworthy did say not to have a recommendation of no house to be placed on. So no loss of actual land size.
Well, which is again, Madam Mayor, something that we have done consistently. We haven't got a letter from DPIE, so this one is a council. We've done these things for quite a few years that I'm aware of, and we've tried to create it for the benefit of the community. No benefit to me or you or anyone sitting around the table. We need to keep the district growing and we support these things, and I just can't. It might be in an LEP, but I could name 20 of them we've done in the last 2 years. Quite comfortable. I mean, this is what we've been doing. It's consistent with what we're going to do. Okay, the other one's got a nasty one. This one hasn't. I'll move an amendment, if that's all right, that we approve. No, second.
Councillor Haywood was first, so Councillor Haywood. Comments on, we've heard your comment, but second, I'd like to comment on.
I concur with what Councillor Elston put.
It's a different case to the other one. So, is there any further comment on the amendment? And the amendment says that straightforward that.
Madam Mayor, we seem to have bureaucrats that want to put a fight against any development in Wentworth. Historically, we've got these 4 blocks. We've got surveyed properties that are out of kilter. And we've got people that want to live on the land they've owned for yonks. And, I mean, these are not going to be consoled because you go for an LEP or adjusted and nobody cares. They say, oh, this is the law, to hell with it. And we're dealing with people, not bloody bureaucrats.
Councillor Wilson, thank you. Just be moved, and so it's throwing me off now, Councillor Wilson. We've got an amendment. It's been moved and seconded. Those in favour of the amendment? Okay, that's carried. The amendment becomes the motion. Those in favour of the motion? It's carried. The division to those in favour of that. That's carried. Thank you. Okay.
Councillor Division, what's Councillor?
Councillor Evans, we couldn't see your hand. What was your vote there? It's a division. For or against?
Mine was against.
Okay, thank you. Yes. And Councillor Miller's against. Everyone else is
I was against as well, Madam Mayor, because it's illegal and it is illegal, Madam Mayor. It's the same clause in the same let.
Okay, 913, Boundary Line Third Highway Gold, page 118. The recommendation there. Somebody move that, please.
I'll move on the principle of 912
Thank you.
that we approve it.
Nice. Would somebody repeat that amendment? So, Councillor Wilson, comment, please. For or against? You want to comment any further?
Same story.
No one further comment? Councillor Evans, Councillor.
I'll just make a comment. I think we have to be consistent. I don't think we're looking like we are at the moment, but we'd all like to be putting our hand up and approving these things. But I think we need to also keep in mind that these things can be challenged, and we are better off to allow those doors to remain open. We make a determination on these inconsistently. That will, I think, cloud future decisions, and I think this is going to be a big issue for the next council to deal with. And my most important strategy here is consistency and allowing those doors to these departments to be open so that we can go in full on and challenge these ridiculous rules and allow our community to live in the environment they want. I'm certainly not against these proposals, but I see that there's a legal implication to us which could lead to more confusion and perhaps shutting doors that we need to keep open. Thank you.
Councillor McKenna, do you have any comment?
I just think that we're getting, a bit of advice from Howard Clay somehow. We've got 4 of them to refuse.
Thank you, Councillor McKenna. I think the advice I'm sort of taking is from Mr. where he says that this alters, and I know that for 1 month wait, significantly different because it comes under our boundary there. There's a difference there, so I'm prepared to believe what our officer says. Any further comment?
Yeah, if I may, Madam Mayor, it's the same clause, it's the same issue, it's the same LEP, and perhaps what needs to happen, and it may well be a quicker process, is if it is challenged in the Land and Environment Court, and at least then we can have some clarity and push back against the state government that refuses to allow us to amend our LEP.
Okay, any other comment? No further comment? We'll go with the amendment. Those in favour of the amendment?
Take the amendment, Madam Mayor, straight out. It wasn't an amendment, it was a straight out recommendation that be accepted.
Okay. Those in favour of the recommendation?
Was there a seconder?
To approve the application.
Yeah.
Was there a seconder?
Yeah.
They're approved.
Yes.
Was there a seconder?
Yeah, I did.
No, the written.
Oh, the written one.
So
Yeah. So it becomes a motion. Who seconded the
I withdraw. I'm in favour of it.
You're in favour, we approve.
That's what you said.
Yeah.
That we voted. Quite happy to move that.
Okay,
We're working for the ratepayer, not the bloody solicitors and red tape bureaucrats.
Those in favour? Yeah, that's carried. Those who are against, what's your votes counted?
Well, it's division, Madam Mayor.
Division, those in favour?
Well, that's We're not voting for a division. The division is who voted which way. Madam Mayor, can I just say I think it's really unfair, just outside of an election, that we're given all of these controversial planning decisions to be made. It's impacting on this council's ability to represent all of the good work that we've done in the last 5 years in pushing back and trying to get that 2011 LEP changed and amended to create some fairness in the community. And I think it's highly unfair that this is brought to us at the last meeting before we go into caretaker mode.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, Councillor Phillips, but probably, I suppose, the thoughts we're trying to get, next meeting is going to be fairly stable, trying to get some decisions through for items that need to be progressed. So, 9.14, page 120, development of Wentworth Trail Civic Centre project update. There's a recommendation there, please, a mover and a second to that.
So moved.
Councillor, second, please.
I'll second.
Councillor Evans,
Yes.
any comment, queries?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I just want to live long enough for it to happen.
Sure you'll do that, Councillor Mills, yes, forever. Any other, yes?
Yeah, there's two funding applications in totaling 1.4 million. I guess they'll be borrowed if the grants aren't allowed. There's two grants there. Yeah,
Sorry, misheard you.
Sorry, there's two applications there, both for $713,000.
Yeah.
I guess if they're not back money to be borrowed.
Got money.
One of those has been successful.
My question, Mayor, for Ken to Director of Finance. You there, somebody's on?
I am Councillor Elstone. Sorry, I just got dogs barking in the background.
$1 million
So, sorry, I'll just go and shut the door and then I'll get you to repeat that again.
This doesn't cover all our funding opportunities. This doesn't cover. This is where we're going with grant applications. It doesn't cover that $1 million we're sitting on.
Sorry about that. They've been very well behaved up till now, and then someone walked past the house and they started barking.
No, they heard Councillor Elstone's voice. Deputy dog.
I think in your absence, quieting the dogs, and the general manager's answered it. I was just questioning the $1 million in the future development fund that we decided back a while that you would go into the city centre development.
That's definitely an option to be considered. Yeah, yes, and in relation to Councillor Noonan's question about the funding, I did give Ken some figures a couple of weeks ago that sort of said that for every $100,000 that we can secure additional funding, for every $100,000 of additional funding that we can secure going forwards, it reduces our interest payments by about $40,000 over the life of the loan. So that's why Ken's trying to continue getting as much funding as we possibly can.
Question, is the Director of Finance going to get his dogs to stand the council?
Might be a comment.
So, Simon, just to follow up on that future development fund, you said it might be an option.
Could be, yes.
Why wouldn't we just do it? Just set it for every 100 grand, whatever.
Well, that's.
That could be used.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, at the moment, the figures that I think Ken and I are working on is we've secured about $3.6 or $3.7 million of funding. We initially said that council would contribute $4 million, of which we would do that via a loan. So at the moment, based on an $8 million project, we're about $300,000 short, which is what you could use that fund to cover that difference for. if you didn't want to loan any more than $4 million.
Why would you just borrow less and use that $1 million that's been sitting in that
Well, that's
fund?
enough.
This council started in 2016, what's it going to be used for?
Very viable to use that fund.
The big one on the corner across the road.
Yeah.
Thank you, councillors. It's been moved, it has been seconded, and there's the recommendation for those in favour. Yeah, I think that's everyone. John's going to DF now, so it's
Get a vote.
thank you, yeah. Yeah, absolutely, hopelessly. 9.15 projects and works report update.
Moved, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Second, please.
Sorry, yes, second.
Thank you. The recommendation, anybody, any questions or queries on works that are happening? A lot happening in that, which is very, very good. So,
Can I just ask the Director of Roads and Engineering about the Pooncarie to Menindee Road? We know that the Central Darlingshire portion of that project has had issues. Has council been successful in receiving any funding towards our section of that road?
We have had a number of meetings and provided all the information with regards to the project to the combined group, which is made up of New South Wales and the Commonwealth. With regards to the project, we have, believe, answered all their subsequent queries that they had with regards to the application, and it is now with the relevant funding authorities for approval for the project, and we're awaiting that, which there's no from the funding body as far as they're concerned. We've answered all the questions, so it's just a matter of the final approval and issuing us with the deed. Until such time we don't have that in our hand at the moment. We've started some preliminary works with regards to the environmental assessment and the aerial survey, and probably unable to go any further as far as expenditure on the project until such time as we have the approved funding and the deed in our hand.
I have a follow-up question, Madam Mayor, through you to the General Manager. Does the General Manager, or is he aware of whether the joint organisation, the Far South West Joint Organisation, has also approached funding bodies for assistance to ensure the entire road is sealed and not just the little bit that was announced at the last state election in central Darlingshire?
I'm a little bit confused, sorry. So my understanding was that both the state and federal government have contributed something like $9 billion to
The joint funding of the feds and the state for 4.6 each, $9.2 million, and that seals out 26 kilometres, 26.2 kilometres. What Jeff's talking about.
Sorry, so that has been approved?
Yeah, they can have points.
Right.
Yeah, so the announcement came out very early on to say the Central Darling component of the road was to be sealed for about 26 million, 25, 26. Then we advocated strongly, and then there was a joint announcement from federal and state government to say our component of the road will be funded. Jeff and his team are just working through the finer details of community engagement plans, environmental plans, and whatever else, and then the deed will come our way for the sign-off of that funding of that project.
But the money's committed.
It hasn't been received. Right, okay.
So the administrative sign-off in terms of the deed agreement is the finalisation.
Okay, so is there a lag in time? Is there a hold up? And I guess my question was, is the joint organisation supporting this as well?
The joint organisation is more concentrating on a regional transport strategy, for which obviously there are certain corridors and routes nominated within that. Because this has already been ticked over as a successful funding application, there wasn't too much in your believe last meeting we had. There wasn't too much concentrated on this road because we see that as being over the line, and it will be sealed between our shire from Pooncarie right through to Menindee. So the JO currently is more around a regional transport strategy of other tourist routes and here, there, and everywhere right throughout the boundary of the JO. So in relation to this project, Councillor McCullough, the answer is probably not regarded as a necessity because we already have the money coming anyway.
And final follow-up, sorry.
Yeah.
You still going?
I was just going to say that our all things being equal with the paperwork, I think Jeff's team was planning on being up there in late October or thereabouts, maybe to.
Yeah, November, subject to however long they get the final deed and approve. Yeah, that's our time
For the 12-month construction file.
Yeah.
Thank you, and you might have answered my final follow-up question, which was that we would not be using the same contractors that Central Darling show.
It is our vision and our desire that our internal resources be used in a similar line to what they're agreeing with.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any further questions?
Well, if I can, Madam Mayor, excuse my not going, but the 1735 runway, that's north south.
That's north south, yes, correct.
So how long's that?
How long is that?
Yeah.
About 900 metres, of which we've probably already constructed 250 metres in that little section. Yeah, stage one, yeah. Yep.
No worries, thank you.
I've got.
Just a question.
We've got the Air Travellers Rest, and I think I'm going to die before this happens. The funding body's granted an extension of time to 1st September. There's a few deadlines, and I noticed we've only received one quote. Are we going to achieve this?
Hopes would be yes. We had final discussions with that particular contractor yesterday, the day before, with regards to that time period. So he's advised that they will commence work subject to his, if there's any other hold-ups with regards to the current COVID situation on the material supply. So.
Okay, the other one was the Orfong water main extension. We had a pre-construction meeting with the contractor on the 12th until the scope of works. What were the outcomes of that?
Oh yeah, that's all completed. So they.
Yes, it's completed.
Yes, so meeting's completed.
The scope of works.
Yeah, that material delivery should have been commencing this week, but they have the materials there. But obviously we'll have to wait until the end of the lockdown until they actually commence on the site.
Thank you very much for that.
Councillor Evans.
Councillor Evans, just a comment or just a question for Director of Engineering, just on the mechanics of the James King Park riverfront there with the tree stump issue. Just wondering the mechanics of that, whether it's going to happen in a timely way, or I noticed that there's more than one tree. There's probably 3, maybe even 4 stumps in there, which probably need to be removed. I'm wondering how that's going to run in the time frame we've got.
Yeah, we changed our methodology about how that was going to happen, obviously with the recent announcement that we're going back in. So that all those stumps have now been cut down and removed. So in accommodation with contractors and our own staff, they worked from about 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon through till 7 last night and have cut down all those stumps and removed everything on that frontage. So their job's completed.
And I can verify that because I saw them in action.
Okay. Any other further questions?
Questions to the engineer or general?
Now we're still on the projects and works update report, Martin.
Engineering.
Well, the roadside signs at the Abbotsford Bridge and north of Wentworth, we have raised them several times. They're jaggy, they're pretty nearly invisible now.
Well, the tourism signs, sure.
Yeah. And they're roadside signs that reasonably important if we're interested in tourism and not listening to an hour of conversation. We want to do something for tourism, and really it is important that those signs get, and it's not the first time I've raised it. I've raised it 3 times. And to be fair to the general manager, there was a staff member that had the job, and she didn't take the job, but we can't put some of these things off indefinitely.
I would suggest that I concur with everything you've said, Councillor Wilden, to the point where we're working with the local tourism body. We're looking at other signage, and in the mix of that, they'll unfold a theme around that, and then we'll move on to the ones that you recall. So the ones that we're working with are under the shelters, the regional tourism signage in up here on the Darling River and Goolwa and Wallaby Bar. Yeah, so there's several upgrades of signage that we'll get to the bottom end of later on this week to endorse those. The theme will unfold to go on to those bigger ones that you talked about on the entry to the town.
All right, been moved and seconded. Those in favour of the recommendation? Thank you, that's carried. 10, notice of motion, questions of notice, and 10.1, floodplain harvesting submission. Councillor Callister has indicated your intention to move. I'll go to you, Councillor Callister.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, so moved, and as read, I think there's a significant bit of background.
Thank you, Councillor Elstone. Are there any comments or questions?
Just a question, if I could.
Councillor Newton.
Just to make a submission, it doesn't say about what you make a submission. I know the intent is, but I think it needs to be in the motion, a submission to what ban and stop them, agree with them, give them all 5 on them, whatever. I think that the nature of the submission needs to be expanded, that motion. Just a motion to do what actually? Submission for getting rid of floodplain harvesting?
Makes a submission, and I'll put the background on the next page.
The background is in the submission, needs to be in the submission. This is my thoughts, but please still have it out to be submission edited.
So your submission is actually to the floodplain harvesting.
Against instead of on. So shall I reread that?
Is
Sorry?
a submission to ban it or a submission to encourage it, or
So
the submission needs some aim.
that council makes a submission to the New South Wales Parliament Selective Committee against floodplain harvesting.
That's
and encourages communities and individuals to also make submissions.
There needs to be very clear. I'm very grateful for saying that.
So you said against.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else got a question or?
Am I allowed to amend that then, that motion, being as that it's my motion and on Councillor Noonan's advice? So
recommendation.
So it does read that there. So the Select Committee against floodplain harvesting. Indeed, for all the reasons listed. Thank you for the input.
I get a vibration. Yes, it's a vote. Those in favour of the recommendation. That's carried. Thank you. Notices of questions of notice. Questions again?
As we just previously discussed, these small blocks in our irrigation area, we have to come to get some finalisation where we're allowed to help people that want to do something in our shire. And we've got to get some help and to make sure that our LEP allows this. I mean, they're blocks that you can't make a living on unless you do something really weird or very technical. I mean, you can have the most stupid thing as a way to earn a living, and they happen. But many of these small blocks that people just cannot earn a living on, and that's hampered by the condition that you've got to be able to make a living on it. It's wrong, and we shouldn't have to go along with it. And I don't know the answer. Possibly we've got to make sure the LEP covering our irrigation areas allow for these blocks to be extinguished or used. I think it's crucial that for the town we've got all these assets, water, power, bus services, everything, and we're not allowed to use it. And we have got to find a way out of it. And we've got highly paid staff. We've got to get some wording in our LEP that allows it. I mean, we had a prime example today of someone that wants to do something, wants to build in our shire, spend money in our shire, and someone crops up with a reason why we can't do it. It's not satisfactory. We've got to come up with a reason and an allowance to let these people use the land that they own.
Yes, Councillor, look, I agree totally with what you're saying. We have to, however, be able to do it legally. I can think of a development here that's been ongoing for 20 years. You know which one I'm thinking of. And we're still trying to get development there.
We have done it in the past.
We're getting hamstrung. However, the consequences now of if we get taken to Land Environment Court, the amount of money that likely gets slapped on us is huge. And I'm thinking of the weir up if you don't follow what they say, if you don't do what the legislation
The Land Environment Court in this case will most probably rule in his favour.
Good, and that'll set a legal precedent. Then we'll have some clarity.
We're making that expense for him.
That'll help us.
Just a reflection on the resolution that came out of the council in relation to today's investigation. Further amended as representation to the state government.
Yeah, so that will be refused, it's been deferred, so you're not going to go to the Land Environment Court to do it.
How we can't even do that.
Try and go to council and try and sort it out. Yeah, anyway, I've said enough, but you know, we started with this same intent 5 years ago when we walked in here, and Frank got absolutely no.
20 years ago.
Well, tell me about it, cookies.
I'll go to you, Councillor Evans. Do you have any questions with notice?
No, nothing for me.
Councillor Don, all we can see is DM. So, Don, do you have any questions with notice? Are you strong? Councillor Noonan.
Oh no, I won't be here to get the response, so there's no point asking them.
Oh,
There you go. No, I don't have any.
Thank you. Councillor Hayward? No. Councillor McAllister?
If I may, Madam Mayor, thank you to the Director of Roads and Engineering. Just wondering if there's an update on the turn off to Bottle Bend Reserve.
Not that I know of at this stage. Obviously, I've been away for a little while, but I will follow up on that. Not that I know of at the moment.
Thank you. I look forward to getting some notification. And secondly, if I may, thank you to Mr. Rule for an email in response to the tip token thing that I've raised a few times. I think it's great that Council's moving towards that, and I think it's going to help resolve some inappropriate dumping of rubbish issues. So I look forward to seeing that come to fruition.
No, I'm all good, thanks, Madam Mayor. I have enough to say today.
I'd just like to thank the council for today because it's been quite frustrating actually, and electronics.
Whoever item that I'll move be admitted, and then I'll move us into confidential.
Okay. Be admitted. Those in favour of being admitted. Now.
I'll move that council adjourns into closed session. Recording the meeting be suspended. Members of the press and public be excluded. and access to the correspondence and reports relating to the items considered through the course of the closed session be withheld and is declassified by a separate resolution.
Okay, thank you. I think that's that.
Madam Mayor, has Councillor Evans got a copy of this late item?
Councillor Evans, do you know what this late business is, Councillor?
No, I haven't got a copy.
There's one here, there's
About the, one day.
that thing, what we're not.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In relation to business being brought forward today by council, I can advise that during the closed business of council, in accordance with the provisions of Local Government General Regulation 2005, Section 178(3), council now may enter into direct negotiations with any person with a view to enter into a contract in relation to the building of the long day care centre. This is on the basis that council has not received any tender submissions under the normal advertising on 2 consecutive occasions. Thank you.
Thank you. There
is a workshop about the end of term report.
So you're telling us to hang around, Mr. General Manager? Am I allowed to go to the toilet?